Welcome to the REI Hacker Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of real estate success. Join us as we dive into the journeys of top investors, mentors, and industry experts. Learn from their experiences and navigate the highs and lows of the investing world. And now, let's hand it off to our host, Benson Juarez.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today for this edition of the podcast. This is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. I'm super excited to have my friend Dan Fugardi here. He is the CEO of InStyler Brands. And Dan and I go way back. We were the co-founders of another startup company. Our lives have taken some different paths over the years. And I've been it's been really cool to see Dan's growth in other markets and other businesses. And so we talk all the time about business and about what's going on. And one of the things I know about real estate and real estate investing is that it closely follows what's happening in the economy, interest rates, what's happening with unemployment, what's happening with other consumer markets. And so Dan and I figured out a way to tie together what he's doing with what we'd like to talk about, which is real estate investing. So Dan, my friend, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I know you've got 1,000 balls in the air and you're always running around with your head on fire, doing cool, exciting, fun things. So thank you for taking the time, especially since we're like right up against the end of a break here for the holidays.
Well, thank you for having me, Benson, of course. And for anybody that doesn't already know this about Benson, this is one of the people I respect most in life, in business, but in life in general. Benson's bar none, one of the best human beings that I've ever met. And if you ever have a chance to meet him yourself, that you'll ever have the pleasure to meet. So thank you, Benson. And it's
very
awesome.
kind.
Yeah,
very kind of you to say. I'll pay you later on for that one, man.
All right. Yeah, it's $20. I'm not charging much these days. A good friend discount. Benson and I go way back, and I, again, pleasure to be here as I've been learning all of my real estate information really from you, the guru himself. There's been a lot of shifts in the market, and obviously that's what we're going to talk about today. And we have different perspectives. Obviously, something we identified as being a powerful asset to both of us is really being able to kind of see the battlefield from two different angles, same battlefield. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited for you to share your perspective about like what's happening in the economy right now. And, we both know that real estate investors are really keyed in on what's happening with GDP, and that affects what people have the ability to, have disposable income and have money to actually invest. Right. It all kind of trickles down from the top. And so, your involvement with this billion-dollar company over the years is pretty exciting. And so, and that's the other goal. Part of my goal with the podcast is to not be so real estate investing focused and start to bring in some different perspectives from other industries and tie it together at the end. So tell me about what you're working on now at InStyler Brands, and then eventually let's figure out, how is what you're working on in the consumer world affecting what we're doing in the real estate investing world?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, to kind of give a brief recap of 2023, it was, as all of us have been watching from our own perspectives, it was, it's been a bit hairy. That's to kind of come back to your head on fire, doing cool stuff, sometimes not doing cool stuff, because it has definitely been sometimes a bit of a mortar show where we have things that we didn't really necessarily expect, because we were bracing for a number of variables last year, and then this year brought a whole new set of goodies. So one of those, I'll start from the top down, that everybody's familiar with: Bed Bath & Beyond going out of business. Right. You see these huge companies that go out of business, and it's just, how does that affect everybody? How that affected me was anything but fun. That actually happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back with these shifts in the debt markets tightening up, as everybody knows. At the end of last year, debt markets froze up, came to a complete stop started to move again and then seemed to come to a complete stop again. Even in real estate, as I'm sure you've experienced and seen. I mean, that I know you have. But that was kind of coming out of that first swing, thought that things were starting to get going again, and then all of a sudden you get something like a massive company like Bed Bath going out, and for us as a company, that created havoc. It caused our senior lender to pull. They happen to come right up on the maturity of the note, something real estate investors deal with and keep an eye on, as a day-to-day thing, or at least as a investment profile thing, I should say. In the same fashion that a note can mature on a piece of property, it happens with businesses. So it happened to be right around that time, and it had thrown our borrowing base off, because we still had some AR out with Bed Bath. And for anybody that knows, business lending, they don't give you the capacity that you really should have. So you're already, they make it as tight as possible to make themselves as protected as possible, like all lenders do. And one big wave like that can throw the equation off, and that's what happened. Happened to be right around when we had a note maturing, and they pulled. So we had to come up with money, quickly, and that kind of creates an onset of other things, right? That one event, and I know it had the same effect on a lot of businesses, either directly or indirectly. Does things like it pushes off launches, right? It causes CEOs to look at the landscape a bit different and start to be more defensible, because you go, okay, there's so much that you can account for on the downside, right? There's so much that you leave as a buffer, but then when something big like that happens, you're kind of out of buffer, and you have to either assume things are going to go perfectly well for the next 6 months, which we never do. If you want to be conservative and not do that, or you start to reorder things in a way that allows you more buffer again, but that can come at a loss of launching new products, making maneuvers that were going to open up new profitability, and that trickles off onto the other markets. And so that's kind of that was the highlight of the explosions that we were hoping wouldn't happen this year after last year, but
Right.
They
So,
came.
so to catch people up on InStyler Brands and why the closing of Bed Bath and Beyond was so important to you guys. That's one of your major distribution channels for your products, which are what exactly do you guys sell?
Sure, hair tools. I mean, we're hair appliances primarily. We're starting to move more into items on the periphery of that, so wet goods or accessories, which we've had in the past, but we haven't really focused on. But for other reasons, digital media, shifts in the digital media and social world, we're kind of starting to move into those areas, but primarily hair appliances. So, started with the rotating iron. That's I think something that pretty much almost every American woman, at least over a certain age, if not across the board, knows what the rotating iron is. That's ours. We have that in 2 of our brands, the other one being Dewberry Moore's flour. And from the genesis of the company 15 years ago, there was a whole product suite created, and but with the same type of innovation. So we focus on top-notch innovation for hair appliances, being hot tools, hot brushes, blow dryers, irons, variations, combinations of those. So anything that plugs into the wall. And what we've done is really tried to keep a focus on top-notch innovation, which is how this company started and what it's continued to be over the years. But we've tried not to succumb to the pressure of rising, interest rates, cost, fuel for it affects our supply chain, warehouse costs that directly relates to real estate. We can come back to that. Obviously raw materials. So all the costs going up, it really makes it hard for a company like us, which is, prestige and premium hair tools at mass market prices, and trying to make, mass market, or trying to make premium hair tools accessible to everybody. But that's hard to begin with, and that becomes harder and harder. So it's been a bit of a tough equation, but we haven't cracked under the pressure. We're not reducing the quality of what we're making, but then comes these types of of conversations and strategy that you go, okay, how do you open up more profit? How do you make maneuvers that make the company more agile so that we don't start cutting in the places where it matters, like quality?
Yeah. So in my space, I like to work with influencers a lot, right? I like to work with people who have, large social media followings to help distribute, like our software, and people learn education, and there's all kinds of courses. Is there are you guys leveraging those kinds of mediums and channels for sales through people who have large followings that are talking about makeup and hair and those sorts of things?
Yeah, absolutely. We're pushing more into that. One of the things that I identified coming into this company a few years ago was that the company is sort of, I call it complacency. This happens when a company is successful at too rapid of a rate. So the company, from its genesis, kind of went from zero to hero so fast that it skipped a lot of the in between, went right into big box. All the big retailers in the country, around the world, and in dozens of countries. And some of that cultural piece was not missed, but sort of, not given as much attention as it could have had. Combined with that, or during that, there was a shift to social media, to digital. So that sort of worsened that problem. So to answer your question, yeah, we're very much pushing back into using influencers more on the affiliate side. There's a shift taking place, as you've probably seen, where affiliates are more on the rise. People aren't just getting paid to take a picture of themselves smiling anymore. It's like, you got to work with us to make money together, but we can make some real money together. And that's always been my model. I'm a very big performance guy, so I'm really happy to see that shift happening. But it's good for everybody. It's good for everybody. It's good. You got to attach to your brand. You got to really believe in what you're partnering with. And then you have a good collaboration. You can both go on and make a lot of money. So yeah, that's a constant push that we're doing. And there's a lot of fluctuation, a lot of change happening in that space. And it's been interesting, but it's good. Kind of levels the playing field.
It really does. Yeah, because the big box model has been slowly degrading over time. You see all these big malls closing, and then you had these big box stores that were by themselves. They were kind of like these corner pieces of retail that would go out of business. And now, there's a big shift to like just online sales, and, driving people to a website and having them buy things, or just using channels like eBay or Amazon to push products out there so you can really lower your overhead costs. That's been a movement for a while. And then COVID happened, right? So then people couldn't even go out to these stores and buy products anymore. And now people are just lazy. They want to Instacart everything to their house. Like, how has that changed your business?
Well, a number of ways. So, it started to become a feeding frenzy. And when I was more active at Vantage BP, where we did online reseller protection, this was, our business exploded. And that was due to everybody having to go online by necessity. That became a very good place to be if you were quick to move, like a lot of things, just having a finger on the pulse and getting to the show on time. But then what happened is with like everything else, it's like a pendulum that swings, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction type of thing. So for every part of that was good, it came back full swing on the other side, where the market got inundated and cost of ads went up. And then all of a sudden, it's not as, call it inexpensive or profitable to be marketing on social media. You have to be doing it right. It's not like it wasn't just a given like it was during periods. So yeah, to answer your question, that brings us to today, where there's a lot of focus on social media and what to do. I've seen big companies. I've been talking with CEOs of large companies that have been around for a long time, have a big footprint, and they're, I don't say nervous, but you can tell there's an eyebrow up, like, all right, what's going on next? And how do we stay on top of this? So what's good is that what I see happening, and I like this, is that there's a kind of a convergence of this large swath of people that became, influencers. And for a period of time, it was a little bit noisy and inundated. And it was like, how sticky was it? How real was it? Converging with the brand and stuff. But now it's kind of, they're all there. This is what they do. There's not really much going back in terms of the last 15 years. And brands are going, all right, what do we do? We're gonna have to work together. And that's where I see a really positive, iteration happening. And then, that happened all around the same time. TikTok Shop came out this year and really shook things up in the market. I think actually TikTok Shop, and I haven't verified this yet, but it would take a deeper study than just looking at some data. But I believe TikTok Shop was the reason why the GDP was not as low as it was projected to be this year. But again, full swing. We might be seeing that happen next year.
Oh yeah, it's huge. So I push out my content to 4 major channels: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. But I consume most of my stuff through TikTok, and I've been seeing a big shift in how brands are presenting themselves on that channel. And it used to be like influencers, like you'd see famous people pushing products, but now you see average people pushing products through TikTok shops and in affiliate commissions. And it was like smaller unknown brands. But I saw an ad yesterday that was for a Mercedes van, like one of those vans like you can take camping and stuff, and huge brand, like doing like the exact same thing small brands were doing, but they didn't use an influencer. They used some unknown guy, and he was talking about his Sprint van. He's like, this is the coolest Sprint van, and it's got the Mercedes branding on it. Like, there's some cool things that are happening now in the consumer markets that nobody saw coming.
Yep. You're 100% right. And this is exciting to me personally, because as you know, one of the big things that I stand for and that I care a lot about is people having the ability, the democratization of access or of opportunity. And that's just, and while that has been a common theme the last few years, I was out there pushing this 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I first stepped into adulthood. And I've really loved to see this shift happening. To your point, it's now, so the social pressure of let's democratize things has been happening over the last few years. And now, to your point, what that has done is trickled into social media, where it's simply a small decision with something like TikTok, which kind of, for anybody that doesn't know, it acts as kind of like Medium does for publications, right? Or Reddit, right? The more things are voted up, it can, all of a sudden you can go from nothing to a viral video or in no time, right? So therefore, the large influencers are not as necessary. I don't want to say as valuable. They are, but the small person, if you will, or this person with little following, I should say, can just jump in, do something cool, and blow up. And what's really cool about that is that that fits the narrative of we the people more, and really allowing everybody to come in and have a fair shot and not have to climb a wall that you can't climb, right? There was once a point where you just could not get over the wall. That's not the case anymore. And that's really exciting to me, because that's inspiring, right? That's what I want to put out in the world, is things that inspire people to push through and make whatever they need to make, regardless of where they are in life. And that's what we're doing as a company. But you're right. All the companies are following suit, and it's a great thing. It's really it's bringing it back down to us as a society. That's absolutely true. And that goes right to real estate investing and stuff too. It inspires more people to get in and communicate and collaborate and, with each other and make a life for themselves, because things are shifting, and you got to be scrappy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all connected, but you have a real estate investing background. So, we're talking here about, consumer markets and InStyler Brands that you're part of now, but you've been part of teams that have done millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue. Do you see real estate being part of your future? Like, we've talked about doing some different things in the past, right? Like, right. So like, you've got this really cool thing going on. What's next for you when you start to look at, okay, I want to put my hands in some more projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the short answer is yes, of course, going to be involved in real estate. I believe that everybody, at least for the foreseeable future, everybody that's alive now is not going to see a time where real estate is not an asset that that is highly reliable, if not a certain win with time and money, right? Real estate will always win with time, and time requires money to be able to buy that time in certain cases, right? So yeah, always. And that's kind of comes back to like, what are CEOs doing from a personal standpoint, right? There's what we're doing from a company standpoint. We're looking at shifts that are going away from metropolitan areas and opportunities that are taking place in the Midwest and the South, because warehouse cost is a good one. Just going through the roof, even though office space, the office industry is shifting downward, or at least it's still a little bit, I have to, it's still a downward shift in metropolitan areas. That's a fact. But even though it's not as dramatic as the rise in warehouse costs, or I should say, because it's not as dramatic, or because warehouse costs are, the rise is a lot more, there's still, it encourages an opportunity into the Midwest and the South, which is going to bring companies, which is going to, rise or increase house prices, or property prices. So, your question, coming back to your question, what's next? Always real estate. There's always some part of everybody's portfolio. I mean, most people's portfolio, that's real estate, which continues to be why real estate's, very bankable and solid asset. There's definitely, I see it as being one piece to a bigger puzzle. Everything's changing these days. You got to be, just like if you're in consumer business, you got to be savvy on social. If you're in real estate, you got to be savvy on tech. And which is why I constantly I'm proud to know the guy sitting literally at the seat in the middle of all of it, in the best place possible with the best mind possible. And you got to pay attention to the data, but the data also is giving you indications of what the next set of data is going to be, which is GDP fluctuations, these rising interest rates, which is going to affect the businesses in metropolitan areas, also people investing in metropolitan areas, because that's it takes out your ability to do Fannie and Freddie loans and get 3.5% down properties, right? You can't. There's a limit to that in the cities now. You can go do that all day long out in the middle of the country. So there's a lot of shifts into the middle of the country, and just like every shift, paying attention to it's going to give you opportunity. But I guess that's the short answer. I got a longer answer, but that was already long enough.
Oh, that was the short one?
Yeah, that was the short one. That was the short one. But yeah, definitely keeping an eye on real estate. I want to start moving back into real estate more in the coming years.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, and we got to continue that conversation about funds and finding opportunities, because there's so many people out there that have deep pockets, from making money in business, right? And just kind of normal business stuff. They're making good salaries, and then they've got all this money in the bank. It's not working for them. Inflation is crazy, and they're losing money by just having that money sit in the bank. So they need a place to put that. So that's definitely something. But you mentioned something while you were talking about, warehouses and manufacturing, right? Like those are really things that can make a no-name city into something that this is growing out of control. So you do see cities in the Midwest. I have a specific example. I knew a guy, and this is not in the Midwest, but this was in New York, in Rochester, Syracuse area. I was talking with a guy, and he was like, "Man, it's crazy. Like this micro chip manufacturing company is moving there, and like in 6 months, real estate had gone up like 50%. The values to have, and it's just because this company was gonna go there, and so the people are like going crazy. They're moving there, and they have to plan for all these new employees coming, and it just creates opportunities, a ton of opportunities in the real estate space for fix and flippers, for developers, for multifamily developers, single family, all of it. It's all connected.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would, so I guess the answer there is buy a bunch of property in a desolate area and start a rumor that somebody's coming into town.
Or just keep your finger on the pulse of the news, right? And be like, okay, a year from now, they're going to start building an Amazon distribution facility in this city, right? So okay, well, let's start laying the foundation there. Let's start going there and maybe, buying some low price property before it starts to go up, just anticipating the values are going to go up. But make sure that, the property you're acquiring, you're not thinking so far out that you're losing money along the way, but, maybe a cash flow is a couple $100 a month as a rental. Right. And then,
Right.
cash flow is one way to get, good properties in your portfolio to perform, but then there's appreciation, there's
Right.
depreciation, and then there's loan pay down. So those are
Right.
the four main ways that assets can serve you, not to
Right.
mention the tax write-offs
Right.
that you get. I mean, obviously the depreciation, but there's other ways there that you can, offset other income that's coming in. So, paying attention to these consumer markets and what's happening with manufacturing, warehouse storage, and then, trying to be, the trailblazer in those markets.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you said something in there that needs to be focused on, which everybody is focusing on already. That's in this game or trying to get into this game, being real estate investing, is you want to make sure your properties are cash flowing, right? So that's been the issue in metropolitan areas. And, we've all heard of the golden handcuffs, where, somebody that got into a loan 3.5% years ago is now refining out for 7, or at least, 6.5. So they're stuck in those properties. So, and that's okay, because there's ways around that. There's conventional loans that you can go out and do that are at 5%. So you're just taking a 1.5 hit, and that's okay. If you're in areas, like you said, that are coming up and where the rent supported, where the mortgage is going to be less than the rent, which is the Midwest, the South, keeping a finger on those big companies moving. I'll say this much here. I won't give the whole secret sauce. Anybody, I guess some of those guys I was having dinner with said they're in the Illuminati. Weren't kidding. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sure we don't reveal anything here. So,
So what is some of this insight you have? You have a secret to tell us?
it wouldn't. I wouldn't call it a secret. It's like the old thing. We were in the military. Remember, you go into club when you're running around going to clubs as a youngster, and you find a club that's got a lot going on. You call your buddies, and when I say a lot going on, a lot of women, in the case of men going to clubs in their early 20s, and then all of a sudden all the guys show up. It's not so much a secret. Well, actually, there is some stuff that I know. But that
don't get yourself in trouble. But what's the sauce? Give me something.
Coming back to the government movements are something to keep an eye on too. So one of the biggest spenders, on the planet are the good US of A. Uncle Sam. Just as much as they'll grab your money, they're throwing it around too. So that is something to consider. And I'm going to leave it there. Anybody listening to this, if you really want to know what we're talking about, you can reach out, get a hold of Benson. If you want to have a little bit more of an inside chat, because I've actually got my eyes on stuff that, you don't necessarily want to tell the whole world, which comes back to another strategy. Find things quietly, dig around, find them out for yourself, go to local neighborhoods, talk to people. And you can actually find out some really interesting information. And when I say talk to people in local neighborhoods, just pick somewhere in the Midwest, and anywhere from, Arizona, Alberta, or, New Mexico, right? Colorado, Nebraska, Alabama, Atlanta. You can go around, and I know it sounds a little bit, unconventional, but let me tell you, unconventional is where you find deals. And I know that. That's why you've been, that's why you've dedicated your life to building this incredible technology at Privy, where you've got the ability for people to now dig around and find these wildly incredible deals in seconds. And that's why I've always believed so much in your business too. But you can do the same thing as a person on a different level. It's like a top tier salesperson. You can they'll be having a conversation with another company, and they'll hear something about, they'll be talking to Porsche, and then in there is somebody that's casually mentioned from Croatia, and you're like, and you grab onto that, because you realize there are things that happen that make a difference behind the scenes that you don't necessarily you won't find on paper, or you won't find in the conventional analysis. And one of those things is digging around and talking to people. So to answer your question, I do have some of that information from doing just that when I've been out on business trips. And I have found out some pretty crazy stuff where, I mean,
I bet
billions and hundreds of billions of dollars getting moved around in the country. And these are good things to be on top of. So that's my advice. If you really want to get scrappy.
Yeah. Well, just from a practical level, it's been a strategy for real estate investors for years to buy real estate around military bases, right? Because it's a transient kind of world, and not everybody lives on base. There's base housing, but that's usually like for low people have been around for a while, right? Like enlisted people, even like E1s, E2s, E3s. But officers and other people who have been around in the military for a while, they live off base, right? So they have to go get a rental property. And so rental properties have done exceptionally well around real estate bases. And actually, I know a lot of people who are in the military who, every time they get transferred, they PCS to a new base, they'll buy real estate, and then they keep it, and then they go to the next one and they buy it again. So there definitely is a strategy to watching what the government's doing and figuring out where they're spending money and which economies are they propping up by moving stuff there. And maybe some of it's even so, it isn't like there's a big base there, but maybe what's underneath the ground. Like, how come you see military trucks driving around and you're like, well, there's no base around here, what's going on? So there is a way to like maybe figure out some opportunities around that. I don't know how we got on that tangent, but it is something to pay attention to. Like, there's always an opportunity to make money in real estate if you're watching other industries, right? Which is why we're here today.
Yeah. It's funny. Maybe the answer to this question on VA loans. I would assume there's some opportunities there in terms of, if you're going to be poking around a military neighborhood, partnering with somebody in the military. VA loans, zero money down, low interest rates. But those are owner occupant loans. I don't think there's any investment stuff there, but they can buy them with that initially, and then after a certain period of time, I think they can move on and use that loan for something else. So I heard something recently that I guess I'll tell you about here, Benson. It's still hearsay, and I'm gonna tell you when I get to the bottom of this, that two veterans can go in on a commercial property together. Again, still hearsay as of right now. I heard it through what I believe to be a credible source, but it can go in on a commercial property, multifamily, at 7 units, from my understanding, not over or under, which makes sense to me because that's
exactly 7
units. And I understand at least from deduction, the logic to that, right? Because if you go, as you go down to 3 or 4 units, sometimes that equation is not necessarily. I had a light just go out. That was a sensor light. The equation is not necessarily a given that it's going to cash flow you positive at 3 or 4 units. Sometimes it makes it a little bit more complicated to do that depending on the area that you're in. And then when you get up to 10, 12 units, there's other complications, right?
It's more larger commercial, different loan,
more management, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense, and maybe in that case it's because the members can also live in a unit each. But those kind of cool things still exist out there. That goes back to that research of trying to dig around and find. It's kind of like you would with tax credits with a business, and finding creative things that the government has put in place. And it's an endless world of stuff. I mean, it really is, and you can't find out necessarily by Googling it, by just asking 1 or 2 people. It's a constant search.
Yeah.
So
someone has to be hungry to do that and have the time to do it.
I'm talking to the so many people. I don't know. I'm not talking to anybody that, if you got a show for the people that sit around waiting for things come to them, I want to come to that show and see if there's anything to it, because I haven't found it yet.
Right. Well, there's lots of people that, are in this audience that, have their own personal struggles with, motivation and being proactive and efficiencies in their business. And most people that are listening to this actually have actual real jobs, 9 to 5 jobs, and then they're hustling on the side to get their real estate business going.
Yeah.
So, it's a challenge for a lot of people to do multiple things. And so, part of what we talk about here on this show is, ways of being more productive and looking for efficiencies and using data and software and technology and automation to do a lot of the tedious work that has to be done. So, we've got an interesting mix here of people, which is why, again, I think this is a great angle here to like bring in more people that come from different industries, that come from different backgrounds, that aren't just our traditional, wholesalers or coaches or mentors or fix and flippers or landlords, and start to like, stir up some new ideas in people's heads and create some new angles and help people to see new opportunities and niches that maybe they didn't see before.
Mm-hmm. Well, you brought something up, or at least you touched on something that, maybe we can speak to for a second in terms of motivation. Sometimes it's not motivation, it's just capacity. I see parents doing their thing and I don't understand how people do it and have a job. I don't. And my hat goes off to everybody out there that has something running around in your house, breathing and eating up all your food and taking up all your time, because that seems like a battle zone by itself. So I really have a lot of respect for parents, working parents especially. So to your point, yeah, maybe, it's not a motivation thing, which, something that I lean in on a lot. A lot of times it's not motivation. It's getting out of your own fears and also getting outside of your own voices, right? So it's exhaustion, right? It's you can't lay down and go to sleep, right? And that's one thing that we all know. And that's the thing that sucks about life. You can get as tired as you want, you still can't lay down and go to sleep. And that's, and that's where
Can you take a nap? Can you take naps here and there?
You could take a nap. It's a little thing. This is the first time I'm talking about it. I'll just give a little glimpse here called InDrive Live. We're going to bring some good energy to the world and explain how you can do what you just said, where you always got to be in drive. And that's just the unfortunate reality of life, but you can stop the car. You can stop the car. You got to have your foot in the brake. You can't just go to sleep and with the car in park, right? This is a metaphor.
Right.
Obviously you can take a physical nap. But yeah, the point is it is good to, I'll reference one of my good friends and somebody I look up to, Shannon Briggs, who, let's go champ. That's his, he that got him out of his hole, and that keeps him moving every day. And I've seen him do it where he, if he starts to go, all of us start to get pulled down by just the energy of the world, things kind of, getting on your back. And it's like, oh, how am I going to do all of this? I can't even really get up and let's go champ. And that's it. Like right there, just get yourself up. And it's not always easy to do, right? But you have to fight through it and do it. Now, coming back to the capacity of how you do this, that's kind of where I mentioned that idea around military bases and veterans, or in that case, active military members. There's really potentially good opportunities there, because let's not forget about the ADU, right? So you can add, you got additional dwelling units where, wood prices are going up right now, but you can go and you can get refurbished wood and stuff, or there's alternatives where you can do light gauge steel with the foam composites that are actually better at insulating and more wind resistant, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of, and inexpensive. So there's a lot of alternatives where you can go in and get with somebody else that's going to manage it, because they have the energy, because they're younger, they've got, just enough time, maybe owner occupant, and you can have an additional dwelling unit that you rent out. Well, that military members, they've got to pay for a place to live, like you said, off base. Their housing allowance is pretty decent generally, and or not generally, I mean, unless it's an extremely expensive market. But in the case I did when I was based in Hawaii, you just get a few of your friends together and you're fine. So
right.
And you have a cool house. But so my point is that, yeah, look, if you don't have the capacity, don't let it get you down. You have to find the energy to think and come up with a strategy. And sometimes that's hard. But when you get there and you look around, you realize there are options. And some of that's partnering. And partnering is not always the best way to go. I'm not going to say it is. But if you're in this situation, like you're saying, where you've got a job, you've got kids, you want to make some moves, but you don't know how the heck you're going to do it, sometimes partnering is a good option. And you get a military person,
It absolutely
their
is.
integrity is typically, you got a better chance of picking somebody off the street being better. Honor, courage, integrity, commitment. Those are the things that we live by in the military, as you know. And you stand to get a good energized person that can handle everything.
Yeah.
So there's
Partnerships
always
is
an answer.
big in real estate. It really is. A lot of people do JVs, but I want to stay on the path of, trying to like tie this together as we wrap up. Is like, you're in business, I'm in business, we're all in different industries, but you could take away the specific industry, and we're facing a lot of the same things every day with just having to execute and the challenges of having to overcome adversity, and like you talked about the inner conversations and fears. And so like, what would be your advice for somebody who's just trying to make it happen, right? They're trying to get their first deal, they're trying to get their next deal. What is some advice you can give them from somebody who's making moves in the business world to just get there? Like, what are some things that you can advice you can give them so they have the ability to go and succeed?
Yeah. All right. Well, rule number one, absolutely watch this man's show, and stay tuned into the gurus, the experts that know the industry. And so I say that as a joke, but not a joke at all. And especially in your case, Benson, being the stellar gentleman that you are, you're always looking to really give people good advice and see people do well, which is the type of people you want to model yourself after. So that's one. Keep a constant flow of information coming in. But to really kick it off and to go make something happen, look, this is what I say: money comes and goes. You cannot have that mentality across the board with everything, and you don't want to throw $250,000 Hail Marys. But cash on cash, right? That's the key. So what you want to figure out how to do is get into a property where, even if your risk is maybe, this is my opinion, by the way, these are different methodologies. This isn't always the answer, but you can get into a conservative situation that pays you less, and maybe it's more money, and that's okay. But I say the best way to really break in, if you're looking to make some real money, which is, I believe, what everybody's trying to do when they come into this, is what's your cash on cash equation? That means getting an FHA loan. In this case, you want to get away from metropolitan areas, and find a place where, if you've got a 3 or 4 plex, it's got to be, you don't want $1 million plus property where your mortgage is $6,000 and it's making $7,000, and a tenant goes away and all of a sudden you're in the red. So you want to find a place where your mortgage is as low as possible, right? So sustainability, that takes some digging around. Using Privy is a fantastic way to do that. Absolutely fantastic. In fact, I would say there is no better way to identify a good deal on the planet than Privy. And then that is not because we're friends. Benson knows that, and anybody that's used Privy knows that. So, that then again, maybe it's finding a partner to get your exposure down, because even if you have $100,000 and you can do the $100,000 that's required, if you're so lucky to get $1 million+ place that's cash flowing positive, and maybe you can do the whole thing by yourself. I believe in diversity, age-old rule that it's good to really never let that go. So maybe you do $50,000 there with a partner. Again, try and find somebody you trust and know. And then that way you can do another one. That way you're diversified. So if one goes south, then it's okay. And you can take bigger risks when you're doing bigger cash on cash deals, meaning you're paying $100,000 for a $1.5 million place that is going to get you back, $300,000 if you just get a 20% appreciation. So right. That it takes some risks. Just make sure it's on high cash on cash equations.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, Dan. Like, this was a pretty cool episode. I'm excited to again, start to bring in some different, and that was your idea, honestly, to bring in some different kinds of people. And of course, I wanted you to be the first one. So I really appreciate you taking out the time of your busy day. And, I wish you the best and what's coming up down the line. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your secret offline about what's going on. because I'm sure you can't tell all of the audience here, but thank you
We'll
so
tell
much.
the ones that come and find us. You want to find out, come find us. Because going back to what I just said a second ago, we'll take partners. We'll devise a plan that's a nice diversified portfolio, and with some more capital power, gives us all the ability to do more in life. We'll talk about it, but I'm just not we're gonna do it. We're doing it with you. So yeah. But yeah, man, it's really great to be on your show, man. It's really it's inspiring for me, and there's nothing cooler than seeing one of your best friends in the world do what you've done in this industry, and then getting to be a part of it. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And for everybody who's listening, like and follow the show. Keep an eye out for future episodes. We're going to have a lot more exciting new guests and new tips and tricks and inspiration. And, if you just hear one thing that will help you in your business, it'll absolutely be worth it. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.